just listen to that. That's a real quote from a real letter written nearly 1,000 years ago. Imagine being on what's supposed to be the most sacred journey of your life, only to have that happen. It really makes you wonder.
Right? How did we get here? How did a German bishop and literally thousands of his followers end up in a desperate battle for survival? This is a story that's kind of been lost to history, overshadowed by what came next. But we're going to dig into how this massive, peaceful mission went so horribly wrong.
So, what we're talking about here is the Great German Pilgrimage of 1064. And let me be super clear, this is not the first crusade you've read about. No. This happened a full 30 years before all that. It was this enormous and incredibly violent journey that might have just set the stage for everything that was to come. To really get what happened, we've got to rewind to the beginning. We're talking about a movement of people so huge for its time that they literally had a name for it: the Great Multitude. And get a load of this number, somewhere between 7 and 12,000 people. You have to understand, in the 11th century, that's not just a big group. That's basically a moving city. It was the single largest pilgrimage of its kind that had ever set out from Europe to Jerusalem. Just massive. And this is where the story gets, well, it gets really tragic. You see the goal, right? It was meant to be a pious, peaceful journey, the ultimate act of faith. But the reality they were marching straight into, it was an absolute nightmare. Something else entirely. So who were these thousands of people anyway? Well, it was a wild mix. You had powerful bishops and rich nobles, traveling right alongside regular folks, peasants, craftsmen, you name it. A whole slice of medieval society, all united by this one single purpose. Okay, so let's talk about the journey itself. This wasn't a weekend trip. The path from Germany all the way to Jerusalem was an epic undertaking. I mean, you're crossing through completely different empires, different cultures, the whole shebang. And you can really see the scale of it here. They start in Germany, travel all the way down the Danube River, and eventually hit the legendary city of Constantinople, which was kind of the gateway to the east. And from there, they finally push into the region we call the Levant, getting closer and closer to their goal. But here's the thing. The further they got from home, the more dangerous everything became. It's just a fact. They were leaving familiar Christian lands and heading into territories that were a lot less stable. And just think about it. A huge, slow-moving group, packed with wealthy people, they were a target. And this is where it all goes horribly, horribly wrong. They're so close to Jerusalem, just a few days' travel away, and their holy journey of faith turns into a bloodbath. Out of nowhere, they're ambushed. The chronicles from the time, written by Europeans, of course, describe the attackers with pure terror. Now, these were likely local Bedouin tribesmen. For the pilgrims, it was just complete and utter chaos. The attack shattered their caravan. The ambush was brutal and fast. The pilgrims who weren't immediately killed or captured scrambled for cover, and they managed to find an old deserted farmhouse. And for 3 straight days, they were trapped, surrounded, outnumbered, just fighting for their lives against wave after wave of attacks. Now, you might be asking, how do we know all this in such detail? Well, it's because we have a primary source, a first-hand account from the guy in charge, Bishop Gunther of Bamberg. He actually survived and wrote down everything that happened in this terrifying report that he sent back home. And that brings us right back to where we started. In the middle of this desperate, chaotic battle, the bishop himself gets a lasso thrown around him and is yanked right off his horse. He barely escaped being killed or captured. It's just an insane, vivid moment preserved forever in his own words. So the siege was eventually broken, but the pilgrimage was left in absolute ruins. And the story of what happened? Well, that was about to send shockwaves all the way back through Europe. I mean, just look at the devastating cost here. You've got 7,000, maybe more, people who started this journey, and only a fraction, perhaps 2,000, ever made it back home. The losses were catastrophic. So what was the long-term impact of all this? Well, the survivors who limped back home didn't bring back tales of salvation. They brought back horror stories of slaughter. The whole idea that you could safely travel to the holiest sites in Christendom was just shattered. A new narrative started to form, that the Holy Land was a dangerous place held by hostile forces. You can start to see how this becomes a dark precursor, a warning for what's coming down the road. And that leaves us with this one big lingering question.
Was the Great Pilgrimage of 1064 just a terrible, forgotten tragedy, an isolated disaster? Or was this event, the stories, the fear, the perceived need for military response, was this the bloody rehearsal that would end up igniting the fire of the First Crusade just 30 years later?